A very good afternoon to you, fellow cruise aficionados. We wanted to share with you a few thoughts, observations, things that we liked and, well, occasionally disliked about our recent 9-night cruise on board Royal Caribbean Anthem of the Seas, with the following ports of call: Cape Liberty, New Jersey; Royal Navy Dockyards, Bermuda; Phillipsburg, St. Martin; San Juan, Puerto Rico; and Labadee, Haiti. First, let's take a look around this beautiful ship. Anthem of the Seas was built in 2015, and as of today, she is among the top 10 largest cruise ships in the world. On this journey, she carried about 5,000 passengers and roughly 1,500 crew members. At the heart of this ship is an area they call the Royal Esplanade. You can't miss it. It's a two-story, somewhat open space surrounded by shops, bars, a few premium and otherwise restaurants. It's located on deck 4 and 5 and right around the center of the ship. As we walk towards the front of the ship, we pass an Irish pub, which has a decent selection of craft beers and some creative cocktails. Next, there are more shops and a venue called the Music Hall. It's a two-story open lounge where they have concerts, gatherings, and of course dancing at night. Sitting is cozy, but a bit confusing. During a performance, there's only a handful of seats from which one can see the stage. On the lower level, Music Hall connects to a rather sizable casino. That unfortunately failed to win us any money, but hey, we always consider casino losses, whether here or in Vegas, as an air conditioning surcharge. At the very front of the ship, on decks 4 and 5, is a typical theater with about 1,300 seating capacity, which seems a bit tight considering over 5,000 passengers we had on board. But we'll talk more about entertainment later on. From the theater, we walk to the back of the ship, and we are again at Royal Esplanade, this time on the upper level, where there are a couple of restaurants and the Bionic Bar. This robotic bar is pretty cool to observe. You can order drinks from a tablet and watch them being mixed, shaken, or stirred by two robotic arms. Selection of spirits is rather impressive, but I have to say it's a one-time experience to me. Much more pleasant to have a drink at a real bar. So for those who are thirsty and or ready to party, there is Bolero's just one deck down, where we spend just about every night enjoying a fantastic live Latino music, crazy dancing, and refreshing drinks. If we keep on moving towards the back of the ship on deck 5, there are several contemporary art pieces, some of them interactive and fun to mess with. One may think, and that was actually our initial impression as well, that all the cool stuff is centered around the Royal Esplanade. But actually, area south from it on deck 5 is way more interesting. As we pass through a couple more art installations, few boutiques, and few food venues, we arrive to our favorite part of this ship, the 270. Part theater, part lounge, part just cozy space. This two-story place is at the very back of the ship, gives you gorgeous views of ship's wake during the day and fantastic shows at night, when the venue converts to high-tech theater with multiple stages, moving screens, panoramic projection setup, and much more. As many have said, during the day it works as sort of a living room, and it works really well. Even if they have dancing lessons or kids' activities, there's still more than enough room to lounge around, have a drink or a snack, enjoy a view, or just simply people watch. Even though we had gorgeous balcony stateroom that we'll cover in a little while, 270 was our hangout place for most of the days, especially at sea. But time to move on. Since decks 6 through 13 are mainly staterooms, we jump straight to deck 14 through 16 and work our way forward. There are several adrenaline-inducing activities at the very top: ripcord and flow rider. Both looked very cool and challenging, but not something we dared to try. Even though basics of these two things are free, I believe a couple of minutes each. I guess they decided that the ship would be too classy without a giraffe, so there's that thing. Next stop is a Seaplex, a very roomy area that can be converted from a bumper car arena to basketball or volleyball courts, or even a trapeze school. They also have an arcade, foosball, computer games, and even a food truck. Pretty crazy for the ship. Anything to keep youngsters separated from elderlies, right? Moving on, the main pool. Well, as you can see, they have it. It's definitely on the smaller size, but then again, we never really got any interest in swimming or lounging next to it. Most of the time it seemed and felt rather crowded. What is interesting is the North Star. It's a mast that lifts gondola to about 300 feet above sea level, or about twice the height of the ship. Looks and sounds a bit gimmicky, right? But it's actually very, very cool to see a bird's eye view of the ship as it cruises along or docked at the port. Sort of puts things in a whole new perspective. North Star is free, but reservations need to be made in advance. There is a standby line for those who feel lucky. North Star operates both in ports and while ship is cruising, but they do not launch if the wind is above a certain level. A bit closer to the front part of the ship is another pool. This one is covered, and a dock above it is a jogging path and a reasonably well-equipped gym. Didn't look too crowded on a couple of occasions we were there. And finally, our favorite place to hang out when we felt just like soaking and doing nothing, the solarium. Supposedly adults only, well, not really enforced. This is an enclosed area at the very front of the ship with several cascading cool lounging pools and a few hot tubs. Really the best place to chill, have a drink, read, enjoy the vistas. And if one gets hungry, head out to the Solarium Bistro, which is right there. And that takes us to the next section. Food and beverages. Solarium Bistro is the best kept, yet obvious, secret on the ship. By far it has the tastiest food, ambience and service out of all non-premium dining venues that we've tried. This is where we had majority of our meals. For dinner there is a buffet-style set of delicious Mediterranean appetizers that we often had as a meal, and several choices for the main course, and then again buffet-style selection for your desserts. We also enjoyed Café 270, where they had a rather decent selection of soups and paninis, salads as well, if one happens to be all the way at the back of the ship. Windjammer Buffet was quite adequate for the ship of this size. The only complaint we had, it closes at 9 p.m. What do you do if you party late? Pizza place at the Esplanade just didn't cut it for us, although a lot of folks seem to enjoy it. And finally, main dining rooms. We're generally very easy to please and never had an issue on any of the cruise ships before, but this time, unfortunately, they set the bar particularly low between the wait staff that just couldn't care less about what they were doing and the food being, well, mediocre. Worse than the buffet, even though they cook it in the same kitchen, don't they? Tried twice just to be sure. Same experience, slow service, and a very much subpar food one would expect from a chain one-star diner on the mainland. Enough of a negative vibe. Let's switch to beverages. As if to make up for food, bars for the most part were fantastic. We had a beverage package, so we get to enjoy adult life without feeling too guilty. A lot of interesting cocktails and very creative improvisations, more than enough to satisfy taste buds no matter what deck you're on and what time of the day or night you end up there. Speaking of days and nights, it's probably a good time to talk about entertainment. Swear, the last complaint that we are filing today are the main shows. I promise we'll be back to positive reactions in a second, but we have to say that, again, this was the first time in our cruising experience that the main shows were just, well, they were there, but they weren't working at all. Between technical glitches, very, very poor sound engineering, and overall lack of flow, we found just none of those shows to be interesting. On the flip side, comedians, magicians, and all other entertainers for the smaller crowds on board were great. Fresh, engaging, absolutely fantastic. A Latina quartet at Boleros, as I mentioned before, was phenomenal. We have no idea how they maintained that level of energy every night, but they were just sensational and pretty much made our cruise. And onboard entertainment was even more important to us with so many days at sea overall. However, the cruise experience to us is always about destinations, and of course we had quite a few exciting ones this time. We sailed away from the Cape Liberty, New Jersey. Check-in and embarkation were immaculate, fast, efficient, overall very pleasant. As we set sail, we got to enjoy absolutely phenomenal view of Manhattan. View from the ship beats just about any Manhattan panorama we can think about, especially if one gets lucky with the weather, the light, and overall ambience. Surprisingly fast, we passed under Verrazano Narrows Bridge with just about 15 feet clearance, and then we said goodbye to the mainland for 9 nights. After a day at sea, our first stop was Bermuda. First time on this island for us, and this was one of the reasons we picked this particular cruise. We were dreaming about visiting Bermuda for quite some time, and that sounded like a great opportunity. With only one day here, we wanted to make sure that we get a feel for an island and get to see historical St. George, the old capital. Since tourists cannot rent a car on Bermuda and ferries didn't run on the weekend, and scooters are not our idea of fun, we opted for an excursion from Royal Caribbean that took us all the way around the island with a few short stops at Hamilton, St. George, a couple of beaches, and a lighthouse. The tour was very informative, probably the best way to learn about the island in a short period of time we had. Loved how clean, civilized Bermuda is. Definitely sets it apart from many other islands we've been to. Hamilton was an okay place to visit. We just couldn't find anything interesting or special about it, surprisingly. And surprisingly, same goes for St. George. We strolled through town, had a little lunch, explored a bit, basically what we always do when we only have one day to see the place, but couldn't figure out what the hype is all about. Can't say that we didn't like it, but just somehow was lacking something special and extraordinary that we were expecting. Maybe it's one of those places that you have to visit and explore on your own for a few days before you can start truly enjoying and understanding it. So I guess we'll file it under a follow-up as required. After another day at sea, we arrived to St. Martin. This is where we decided to stay on the ship, since Island is still recovering from the last year devastating hurricane, and as much as we wanted to help them with our tourist dollars, we just couldn't see anything we wanted to do there, especially since we have been there a few years back, and the highlight of that particular trip was watching landing of 747 over Maho Beach. And that is pretty hard to beat. Unfortunately, KLM no longer fly that particular aircraft to St. Martin, so we just decided to take it easy and hang out on the ship. Next was Puerto Rico, without a doubt our favorite destination on this trip. We docked at San Juan Cruise Port, which puts us straight in the old town of San Juan. We arrived at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is the best part of the day when stores are still closed. There's hardly anybody on the streets, so we had the entire town to ourselves. Very cool to walk these old streets, take in beautiful, colorful Spanish houses and courtyards, plazas, fountains, everything else. Slowly make our way to the phenomenal Castillo San Felipe del More, explore the gorgeous old Spanish fort, which is immaculately restored and preserved by the National Park Service. So many things to see, take pictures of, and simply enjoy despite of the hot and humid tropical weather. Then make our way back to town via Paseo del Moro right by the strait that our ship followed. And get back to the city to taste passion fruit mojitos and mofrongos for lunch at Reese's, a nice little local place recommended to us by our new friends. Can this day get any better? It absolutely can. The view from our stateroom as we sailed away speaks for itself, and that was one of the reasons we picked a stateroom on the right side of the ship so that we can see beautiful historical fort in all its glory as we sailed away around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Our final stop was Labadee Haiti. It is a Royal Caribbean private resort that is completely isolated from the rest of the country. They do a good job providing barbecue-style food and drinks from the ship, and yes, our premium drink package worked there just fine. Beach was a bit too busy to our taste, but if one gets up early enough, which is what we did, and makes all the way to the end of the property for the best views of the ship, it is possible to grab a spot under the tree and enjoy a peaceful and relaxing day. And after a hot day on the beach, it is so nice to come back to your stateroom and enjoy your personal island of civilization. And what a beautiful island our stateroom is. Let's talk about that. We were very impressed with this stateroom, probably the best one out of about 10 cruises that we've been on. I just wanted to get a quick walkthrough to show what it looks like. As you enter the room, there is a thermostat that seems to do a very decent job maintaining cabin temperature as low as you set it, as long as the balcony door stays shut. On the left, there is a bathroom, and it seems to be better and larger than typical to us. Certainly a nice touch to have a glass door rather than a flimsy curtain that still exists on some older ships. Plenty of storage space around the vanity and few useful hooks on the wall. Overall, a very nice and contemporary feel, not only of the bathroom but of the entire room. Aside from the decor, a very important point is storage, and surprisingly we had enough room to nicely distribute content of our 4 suitcases in one backpack. Crazy, right? For 2 people. Either way, there's a taller wardrobe on one side of the sofa and a shorter on the other side, but it does have a couple of drawers underneath the shorter one. And it also has some shelves and a safe, which is not large enough for a laptop or even a decent-sized camera, but then again, we didn't find that we use it for anything other than our passports for some odd reason. A couple of tiny night tables, one on each side of the bed. Unfortunately, only one side has an outlet, but that's okay. We decided to quote-unquote cut cords. On this cruise, they stay disconnected for the most part, hence no need to recharge phones as often as you would do on the mainland. There is additional storage above the bed, handy for hats, bulky items such as snorkeling gear and whatnot. Opposite to the bed is a flat Samsung TV of a reasonable size, not that we really watched it. Next, there is another storage space with several shelves and a mini fridge. Mini fridge is definitely better than a mini bar, so that we can store bottled water or any kind of beverages, or one of those 2 bottles of bubbly that you're allowed to bring on board. Seems that with the drink package came those souvenir mugs, but I can't say that we found them terribly useful, but some other folks did. And there's a table that can be moved around if you choose to have room service breakfast or mess with the computer. Have to mention a very nice selection of outlets, 2 American, a couple of USB, and 1 European, for which we brought adapter just in case. So all our cameras, gizmos, and everything else was very well charged and happy throughout the entire trip. One thing is worth mentioning, Royal Caribbean will not let you bring an extension cord. They will confiscate it if you choose to grab one. It's probably a smart decision, considering that cheap cords can be a fire hazard. Better safe than sorry, right? A bit of a hassle, but better safe than sorry. They also do not allow, for the same reason, any irons or steamers. So this room on deck 11, cabin 604, was our home for 9 magnificent nights this past summer. Well, all good things eventually come to an end, so it is time for us to say goodbye and toss a few coins into the ocean. Don't judge, coins are completely biodegradable, right? More importantly, it has been our tradition for over 10 years of cruising. As long as you manage to hit the ocean with your coins on the last night of the cruise, you will be back, and I know we absolutely will. See you very soon, Caribbean. Take care, and until next time.